I'm Jeremy day425 of reading, trading Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Let's get started. Currently on page 412. Let's go, lock in. It was at the crab, said Angelina angrily. He whacked a bludger at you the moment he saw you'd got the snitch. But we won, Harry. We won. Harry heard a snort from behind him and turned around, still holding the snitch tightly in his hand. Draco Malfoy had landed close by, white-faced with fury. He was still managing to sneer. Saved Weasley's neck, haven't you? He said to Harry. I've never seen a worse keeper, but then he was born in a bin. Did you like my lyrics, Potter? Harry did not answer. He turned away to meet the rest of the team, who were now landing one by one, yelling and punching the air in triumph. All except Ron, who had dismounted from his broom over by the goalpost and was making his way slowly back to the changing rooms alone. We want to write another couple of verses, Malfoy called as Katie and Alicia hugged Harry. But we couldn't find rhymes for fat and ugly. We wanted to sing about his mother, see? Talk about sour grapes, said Angelina, casting Malfoy a disgusted look. We couldn't fit in useless loser either, for his father, you know? Fred and George had realized what Malfoy was talking about. Halfway through shaking Harry's hand, they stiffened, looking around at Malfoy. Leave it, said Angelina at once, taking Fred by the arm. Leave it, Fred. Let him yell. He's just sore he lost. They jumped up little. But you like the Weasleys, don't you, Potter? Said Malfoy, sneering. Spend holidays there and everything, don't you? Can't see how you stand the stink. But I suppose you've been dragged up by muggles. Even the Weasleys' hovel smells okay. Harry grabbed hold of George. Meanwhile, it was taking the combined efforts of Angelina, Alicia, and Katie to stop Fred leaping on Malfoy, who was laughing openly. Harry looked around for Madame Hooch, but she was still berating Crabbe for his illegal bludger attack. Or what? Said Malfoy, leering as he backed away. You can remember what your mother's house stank like, Potter, and the Weasley's pixie reminds you of it. Harry was not aware of releasing George. All he knew was that a second later, both of them were sprinting at Malfoy. He had completely forgotten the fact that all teachers were watching. All he wanted to do was cause Malfoy as much pain as possible. With no time to draw out his wand, he merely drew back the fish clutching the snitch and sank it as hard as he could into Malfoy's stomach. Harry, George, no! He could hear girls' voices screaming, Malfoy yelling, George swearing, and a whistle blowing, and the bellowing of the crowd around him. But he did not care, not until somebody in the vicinity yelled, Impedimenta, and only when he was knocked over backward by the force of the spell did he abandon the attempt to punch every inch of Malfoy he could reach. What do you think you're doing? Screamed Madame Hooch as Harry leapt to his feet again. It was she who had hit him with the impediment jinx. She was holding her whistle in one hand and a wand in the others. Her broom lay abandoned several feet away. Malfoy was curled up on the ground, whimpering and moaning, his nose bloody. George was sporting a swollen lip. Fred was still being forcibly restrained by 3 chasers, and Crabbe was cackling in the background. I've never seen behavior like it. Back up to the castle, both of you. And straight to your head of house's office. Go, now! Harry and George turned on their heels and marched off the pitch, both panting, neither saying a word to each other. The howling and jeering of the crowd grew fainter and fainter until they reached the entrance hall, where they could hear nothing except the sound of their own footsteps. Harry became aware that something was still struggling in his right hand, the knuckles of which he had bruised against Malfoy's jaw. Looking down, he saw the snitch's silver wings protruding from between his fingers, struggling for release. They had barely reached the door of Professor McGonagall's office when she came marching along the corridor behind them. She was wearing a Gryffindor scarf, but tore it from her throat with shaking hands as she strode toward them, looking livid. In, she said furiously, pointing to the door. Harry and George entered. She strode around behind her desk and faced them, quivering with rage as she threw the Gryffindor scarf aside onto the floor. Well, she said, I've never seen such a disgraceful exhibition. 2-on-1. Explain yourselves. Malfoy provoked us, said Harry stiffly. Provoke you? Shouted Professor McGonagall, slamming a fist onto her desk so that her tart and biscuits tin slid sideways off it and burst open, littering the floor with ginger newts. He just lost, hadn't he? Of course he wanted to provoke you. But what on earth could he have said that justified what you two... He insulted my parents, snarled George, and Harry's mother. But instead of leaving it to Madame Hooch to sort out, you two decided to give an exhibition of Muggle dueling, did you? Bellowed Professor McGonagall. Have you any idea what you've... George and Harry both wheeled around. Dolores Umbridge was standing in the doorway, wrapped in a green tweed cloak that greatly enhanced her resemblance to a giant toad, and smiling in the horribly sick, ominous way that Harry had come to associate with imminent misery. May I help, Professor McGonagall? Asked Professor Umbridge in her most poisonously sweet voice. Blood rushed into Professor McGonagall's face. Help? She repeated in a constricted voice. What do you mean, help? Professor Umbridge moved forward into the office, still smiling her sickly smile. Well, I thought you might have been grateful for a little extra authority. Harry would not have been surprised to see sparks fly from Professor McGonagall's nostrils. You thought wrong, she said, turning her back on Umbridge. Now, you two had better listen closely. I do not care what provocation Malfoy offered you. I do not care if he insulted every family member you possess. Your behavior was disgusting, and I'm giving you each a week's worth of detention. Do not look at me like that, Potter. You deserve it. And if either of you ever... Professor McGonagall closed her eyes as though praying for patience as she turned her face toward Professor Umbridge again. Yes? I think they deserve rather more than detentions, said Umbridge, smiling still more broadly. Professor McGonagall's eyes flew open, but unfortunately, she said, with an attempt at a reciprocal smile that made her look as if she had lockjaw, it is what I think that counts, as they are in my house, Dolores. Well, actually, Minerva, simpered Umbridge, I think you'll find that what I think does count. Now, where is it? Cornelius just sent it. I mean, she gave a little false laugh as she rummaged in her handbag. The minister just sent it. Ah, yes. She had pulled out a piece of parchment that she had now unfurled, clearing her throat fussily before starting to read what it said. Educational Decree number 25. Not another one, exclaimed Professor McGonagall violently. Well, yes, said Umbridge, still smiling. As a matter of fact, Minerva, it was you who made me see that we needed a further amendment. You remember how you overrode me when I was unwilling to allow the Gryffindor Quidditch team to reform? How you took the case to Dumbledore, who insisted that the team be allowed to play? Well, now, I couldn't have that. I contacted the minister at once, and he quite agreed with me that the High Inquisitor has to have the power to strip pupils of privileges. Or she, that is to say, I, would have less authority than a common teacher's. And you see now, don't you, Minerva, how right I was in attempting to stop the Gryffindor team reforming? Dreadful tempers. Anyway, I was reading out our amendment. The High Inquisitor will henceforth have supreme authority over all punishments, sanctions, and removal of privileges pertaining to the students of Hogwarts, and the power to alter such punishments, sanctions, and removals of any privileges as may have been ordered by other staff members. Signed, Cornelius Fudge, Minister of Magic, Order of Merlin, First Class, etc., etc. She rolled up the parchment and put it back into her handbag, still smiling. So, I really think I will have to ban these two from playing Quidditch ever again, she said, looking from Harry to George and back again. Harry felt a snitch fluttering madly in his hand. Ban us? He said, and his voice sounded strangely distant. From playing ever again? Yes, Mr. Potter, I think a lifelong ban ought to do the trick, said Umbridge, her smile widening still further as she watched them struggle to comprehend what she had said. You and Mr. Weasley here, and I think to be safe, this young man's twin ought to be stopped too. If his teammates hadn't not restrained him, I feel sure he would have attacked young Mr. Malfoy as well. I want their broomsticks confiscated. Of course, I shall keep them safely in my office. Thank you everyone, that's all for today. Bye, see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to read page 417. Bookmark, clip. Peace out.